welcome to this edition of GC Conversations, where our guest today is Dr. Veronica Womack with the Office of Institutional Equity and Diversity. Thanks for coming in today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit, Dr. Womack, about your office and what you do here on campus.
Okay. Our office is the primary office on campus for diversity and inclusion issues. And so we deal with both, faculty and staff as well as student issues as they relate to diversity. We also work with the community on diversity issues. So in a way, we touch every aspect of the constituency of the institution.
And this is a topic that's very important to you, as you were also a faculty member and have done a lot of research on this topic. Give us some of your background.
Well, actually, I am an associate professor of political science and public administration at Georgia College, and I've been a faculty member for over a decade. And my area of interest has always been, political participation, particularly among African Americans. And so I've done extensive work also in rural poverty. And both of those issues lend themselves to diversity and inclusion.
And I have to also give you a little plug. You actually just recently had a book that was published on this topic. Tell us what's
definitely. It deals with underdevelopment in southern rural communities, and it follows the journey of African Americans in the Deep South. And it also looks at those communities in which they typically are a majority population and the underdevelopment in those areas and what we need to do to make a difference in those areas.
A lot of important topics right there. And it kind of goes back to what your office actually does here on campus and how it's not just campus initiatives. Dr. Dorman has made it clear that the issue of diversity on our campus is not only a campus issue, but it's also reaching out into the community. How have you been working with Dr. Dorman to further his diversity action plan that he introduced last year?
Well, I'm very, very excited about Dr. Dorman's leadership in diversity, because when he initially became the president, that was a top agenda for him. And unlike my particular area of interest, it's very distinct in diversity, but in this role, diversity is defined very broadly. And so as a public institution, Dr. Dorman is very, very interested in making sure that Georgia College looks like our state as well as our nation, and that we prepare our students for the 21st century global economy, that they're competent in diversity and inclusion so that they can be successful when they leave Georgia College.
And one aspect that we've already started with on this process was creating our diversity forums, which were actually held last fall. We had 3 of those, and what was the focus?
Yes, when Dr. Dorman initially gave me this charge, he was very specific about what he wanted. He wanted the process to develop the plan to be very inclusive, and he wanted it to be have a broad constituency. He wanted the process to be open. And so one of the ways that we had a wonderful diverse committee, planning committee, and he actually came to the planning committee and gave us our charge. And in that charge, he wanted us to develop a plan that included all types of people and perspectives in the decision-making process. And he also wanted it to be actionable. And so the committee decided that we needed to hear from people. Last year, when I was in the interim position, we had listening sessions around campus, the 3 R's for All listening sessions, where we discovered that diversity was indeed on the minds of people at Georgia College. And from that, Dr. Dorman decided that we needed to put together a diversity action plan so that we would be very strategic about our goals and objectives and mission for diversity at Georgia College. And this is what came of that. So these forums, we had 3 of them, 2 on campus and 1 off campus in the Harrisburg community. The interesting thing about those forums is that they involved our students. Greg Kaufman was very instrumental in putting those on because he used his public deliberations class to train our facilitators. So our students actually facilitated those meetings on campus, and they were very well attended by a broad spectrum of our institution. Johnny Grant, who's the university community liaison, was very instrumental in making sure that the committee was present for the community forum. And as a result of both of their efforts in my office, I have a great staff as well, we were able to have over 200 participants in those forums.
So the actual goal of the forums then was to have that open line of communication, to have that deliberative discussion,
yes.
as Greg talks about.
Yes.
What did you guys find through that process, through those three events? How did that discussion work?
Well, we found some very good things. We found that Georgia College actually has been very, very good at working with our community. What we also found was that we haven't been the best at communicating what we're doing. And so one of the things that we want to make sure is that our community actually knows what we're doing in the community. We do a lot of wonderful things already. So that was evident. We also was made aware of people really were interested in making sure that Georgia College was a diverse campus. And the committee really wanted to make sure that Georgia College would infuse diversity and inclusion into all aspects of the institution, that we really were striving for inclusive excellence. And when you have inclusive excellence, it is diversity and inclusion across the board. So you're not just focusing on numbers or a particular group of people only, and that's all you do. No, we're talking about recruitment, retention, we're talking about campus climate, we're talking about the curriculum and the classes that the students have, the extracurricular activities. Are we providing diversity in scope in those areas? Also our faculty and staff. You know, students pick their colleges around what they want to study and the faculty that they're interested in studying under. And so it's very important that our students also have an opportunity to study with a vast, array of faculty. And our staff is also a very important piece, because usually your students will interact with staff in some cases more often than their faculty. And so that also needs to be a very diverse experience.
Right, so very broad-based here, and we're talking
Yes.
about our diversity action plan here on Georgia College's campus. Dr. Womack, we'll be back in just a second to talk some more about this topic. And we'll be back with more of this edition of GC Conversations in just a minute.
Thank you.
Quiet, please. Wait a sec. I'll take one. Oh yeah. All right. All good. Take care. Way to go. Nice. Bring it on. Gotcha. I'm here for you. Oh no. Please, please, please. I'm waiting. Interesting. Not buying it. Not fair. That's it. This conversation is over. Oh, brother.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things.
I'm having a stroke. I'm having a stroke.
Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time. Time to call 911 immediately. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment, and that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Learn the body language, the sudden signs, and spot a stroke fast.
Adopting a new pet is a rewarding experience. And shelter pets make super pets. Your new best friend will steal your heart, bring you happiness, and enrich your life for years to come. You can make a difference in the life of an animal. Adopt and bring home a shelter pet today. To find out more, visit theshelterpetproject.org.
And we're back with this edition of GC Conversations, and our guest today, Dr. Veronica Womack. Now we're talking about the issue on campus of the diversity action plan that Dr. Dorman has charged you with, and really the campus has charged us to increase this, or to have a more deliberative discussion about this on campus. Just to kind of backtrack a little bit, explain to us exactly what we're talking about here. You know, you hear the words diversity, and for a lot of people that can have various meanings. What's our goal here on campus?
Yes. Because of the region in which we reside, typically people immediately think race. And race is one of many factors when we're talking about diversity at Georgia College. We're talking about race, we're talking about class, we're talking about gender, physical ability, we're talking about regional differences, socioeconomic status. I mean, there's a broad array of factors that we're looking at when we talk about diversity at Georgia College. We have, when we look, at society and our population, it's very diverse. And each of those diversities provide unique experiences and perspectives. And so that's what we're looking for in our classes here. It's really important that our students are met not only with fabulous faculty and wonderful educational experiences, but it's also those experiences outside of the classroom as well as inside that need to be broad to prepare them for, who they'll be working for, who they'll be working with, who their customer will be, what kind of product they'll need to produce. And so you can only get those perspectives from being in an environment in which you have been exposed to various people. And so we really want to make sure that we prepare our students.
Right.
It's all about the students.
Well, and I'm so glad that you gave that explanation, because it is so much more than, again, when we hear the words diversity or you think in terms of that, your mind does automatically go to certain things. And so
Yes.
to understand that it's bigger than race, it's
Oh,
bigger
definitely.
than sex, it's bigger than, where you're from, your regional, where you're from, anything like that. And so
Yeah.
it definitely is. And another reason why it was important for us to not only have feedback in these forums from our bubble on campus, one of the reasons that we went out into the community to get that feedback, in these community forums that folks were broken off into smaller groups to really have a hands-on discussion.
Yes,
Talk us
yes.
through that process and how our forums actually were organized.
Yes, actually, we had 3 groups that were each facilitated by an individual. And that gave people an opportunity to really engage in a discussion. When you have a forum and the people are actually, seated in rows and rows and rows, people really aren't engaged in the conversation. So these were circles, and we were able to really get some useful and valuable information about what people would like to see at Georgia College, the processes they would like to see implemented as it relates to diversity and inclusion. So we used those forums to listen. And I was very excited when I gave my report out that many of the people that attended those forums came to the report out and said, yes, this is exactly, Greg Kaufman actually did a report. And he was able to match that report with what the people said in those forums, with our final product, so that we didn't waste people's time. We really listened to them about what they wanted for Georgia College in the next 5 years.
And as part of that process, we listened and, as you said, kind of brought all the data together so
Yeah.
that there can be a presentation now on, as you said earlier, actionable goals,
Yes.
actual things that we can implement to
Yes.
help reach the things that
Yeah.
people deemed most important. So
Yeah.
where do we stand on that process?
Actually, we have, when we finished the 3 forums, the committee got back together and we actually wrote the report, a draft of the report that was submitted to our provost, Dr. Brown, who was also a part of the forums, very supportive, and Dr. Dorman. And we're at the final stage now. Dr. Dorman will talk a little bit about it, I think, in his State of the University, just a brief summary of it. But we will begin to formulate our advisory committees. What's really fantastic about this diversity action plan is that people's input has not ended. It will continue throughout the process. Each of those, we actually were divided into 4 subgroups that was focused on particular goals. So one group looked at student access and success. Another group looked at the curriculum. Another group looked at campus climate. And another group looked at faculty and staff recruitment and retention. And for the goals that were brought forth by those subgroups, we will now have advisory committees that will ensure that those actionables are implemented. And we will report to Dr. Dorman a written report on when we complete those goals, so that he will be kept informed, he will be able to follow the process, and we'll have report outs to the community about where we are with the forum. So the diversity action plan will not go back into a closet at this point. It'll still be an open process.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about some of those actionables, some of the goals or some of the things that you found throughout this process.
What we really are excited about is that this process is only a 5-year process. So that's a very short period of time. And so what the committee decided to do after listening to the community was to develop an infrastructure at Georgia College. So you'll see a lot of assessment and implementation in the plan. So the first year, a lot of the actionables are about looking at what we have now. You know, when you go to the doctor, you don't want him to write a prescription before he examines you. That's probably not a good, not a good experience. So what we will be doing within the next 6 months is looking at student access and success, looking at our campus climate, looking at our curriculum, looking at our faculty and staff, recruitment and retention issues, and finding barriers, finding what we're doing very well, and then shoring up those processes, those things that we're not doing very well. We need to change those, and we need to remove barriers that we find. So that's the first step. The next step is then to begin to look at best practices. What are other people doing? What are other institutions doing that are successful in these areas? And how can we pull from those experiences to create something at Georgia College that will be sustainable? And that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure happened, as well as Dr. Dorman and Dr. Brown, was that whatever we put together would be a sustainable process, that it wouldn't be something that would happen this year and then next year you don't see anything, that you would build an infrastructure for it to be, a successful process.
And building on our future, a very important
Yes,
thing.
definitely.
Dr. Womack, we'll talk some more about this in just a second, and we'll be back with more of this edition of GC Conversations.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
You sure you don't want some? It's chamomile. Listen, you are extremely terrifying. Just the scariest undead subhuman thing on TV, and I really mean that. But I am worried that you could give my kids nightmares if they see you, so I'm gonna have to block you. So that's it. Oh, and tell the zombies they're blocked too.
Clean kitchen surfaces, utensils, and hands with soapy water. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Kids will spend 8 minutes decorating their little brother.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes, twice a day. They have the time.
And we're back again with this edition of GC Conversations, and our guest today, Dr. Veronica Womack. Now, we were talking about our diversity action plan and some of the forums and actionables that came out of that discussion with our campus community as well as the Millersville-Baldwin County community. So what's next for this process?
Okay. Well, the next step will be for us to put our advisory committees together. And these committees will actually work on individual actionables. And so that's the very next process. And we will start working on those in a couple of weeks. So people will be, getting notifications, and the community will also be a part of those advisory committees. On the planning committee, when we put the plan together, we had Geneva Brazil, who was the superintendent of schools, helping us develop this plan. So we want to make sure that the community voice is a part of those actionables as well.
Well, very good. And as far as this process goes through, I know you mentioned that there are different steps. Obviously, we're having our advisory committees. We're going to start with what we currently have and then see how we build upon that to the next level.
Yes.
How do you guys foresee tracking this as we develop and kind of assessing it along the way? As you mentioned, that's something that's very important, that it's not something we just throw out there and hope it sticks to the wall. We really want to make sure that this is part of the culture here.
Each actionable actually has a deadline. And so with that deadline comes a report that will go to Dr. Dorman. So that will keep us, I think, very, much on track in terms of making sure that we complete the task. Because we have a report that will be due on the task with a particular, date associated with it. And so the plan, is actionable for 5 years. So each of those have very staggered deadlines so that we can make sure that we can accomplish what we need to accomplish.
And obviously we hope that this moves forward past our 5-year mark.
Oh, definitely. We're just laying the foundation for 5. Yeah. This will be changing the direction and culture of Georgia College in a very positive way. But the next 5 years is about building the infrastructure that we'll need.
And then building forward from there.
Definitely.
Now, this is just one aspect, one portion of what you guys do in the Office of Institutional Equity and Diversity. You guys have different other outlets, the Women's Center, for instance.
We have 2 centers located under my Office of Institutional Equity and Diversity, our Office of Institutional Equity and Diversity. And that's the Women's Center and the Cultural Center. So we have Emmanuel Little, who is directing the Cultural Center. We have Jennifer Graham, who's directing the Women's Center. And they do fabulous work for students and on campus. They work some on a limited basis with faculty and staff, but they primarily work with students and community on various issues of diversity and inclusion. We also have Jennifer Birch, who works on educational and training efforts. We're also making sure that the campus climate is compliant with federal, state, local laws and regulations. So we provide training on sexual harassment, on retaliation, and discrimination, anti-discrimination measures. And so we do a great
a lot
deal.
of stuff going on, and a lot of events that you guys host as well for campus as well as the community. And in honor of Black History Month, which has just started, you guys do have a very exciting, couple of exciting events as part of one big process there.
Every year we have the Social Justice Legacy event. And so this year we're bringing in Lee Daniels, who is very well known for his work on Precious, Monsters Ball, and more recently, The Butler. So he will actually join us on the 25th at 6 p.m. in the Magnolia Ballroom. We will, before he comes to campus, we'll have a campus viewing of The Butler on February the 18th in the A&S Auditorium. So that will give people an opportunity to see the film before he comes. And then the following day, on the 26th, we'll have a partnership with the Times Talk and Greg Kaufman. And so we'll have community, student, faculty, and staff discussing the event at Times Talk on the next day at 12.
And Times Talk is actually open to the community as well to come out.
And all of these things are free.
All of these, and we would love for a community to come out. If you haven't been able to see The Butler, feel free to come out and then hear from this very dynamic and influential speaker on February 25th.
Yes, definitely. Very excited about him coming.
Well, Dr. Womack, we definitely appreciate you coming in and explaining to us about the issue of the diversity plan here on campus.
Yes.
And we look forward to the results of this and seeing Georgia College being built up. And really, as you said, having a foundation, that infrastructure to last us for years to come.
Well, I'm very excited about being able to work with Dr. Dorman on this project and the community. I think that we're really moving in the right direction, and we're being very intentional and strategic about it, and very broad in scope, and that is my definition of, you know, of positive diversity moving forward in a very positive way, is to impact broadly. And so I'm very excited about and honored to be doing it. And
now,
thank you for
you're very
letting
welcome.
me come on.
You're very
this
welcome.
show.
Now, if folks wanted to get in contact with you, maybe with some questions or some ways for them to get involved in this process or any of the other things that you guys have going on in the different avenues, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Oh, you could contact me through my website. It's on, you know, www.gcsu.edu/equity. You can call us at 445-4233, that's our main line. Or you can personally email me at veronica.womack@gcsu.edu.
And we definitely enjoy hearing back from the community and for
Definitely.
all of our stakeholders that are here. Well, Dr. Womack, thanks again for coming in. We appreciate you talking about this important topic for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And that's it for this edition of GC Conversations. Have a wonderful day.